So the second point I want to go through is correcting somebody's hip extension, and this is often more problematic than correcting somebody's hip hinge. And the reason is that people are coming in at a disadvantage to do with hip extension because for most of their lives, their working day, they are in hip flexion, and therefore certain adaptations occur in order to, the body almost rolls to a chair. So you become a human chair, and whenever they think, so this is hip flexion, this is full hip extension. Many of my clients come in and they're coming to about here with their hip extension, and they think that they're extended, they're fully engaged at the hip. And what often happens, especially during the kettlebell swing, I say hips forward, squeeze the glutes, and this is what happens. The lower back takes over instead. This happens not only with the swing, this happens with the deadlift, this happens with the squat. And what you want to see instead is the hip hinge, snap at the hips, squat, snap forward at the hips. It's all about coming forward, finishing the hip extension. And what are the issues? First and foremost is sleepy glutes. The glutes don't engage. The body has almost forgotten it has glutes. It doesn't know whether the glutes are actually squeezing or not. You say squeeze your glutes, people often don't know whether they are. They think they are, but they're not. They've lost that connection with the muscle. So it's time to reintroduce yourself to your glutes, and do that as part of your warm-up. Each day that you're training, and I really recommend each day in general, to do a 10-minute glute activation drill. And on my blog you'll see a little video that I did ages ago, and it's just so simple, very straightforward, a few exercises to help waken up the glutes, get your mind connected to it, and also including some glute bridges as well, which will really teach you about what proper hip extension should be. These are all in that video, and I highly recommend that you view it as well. The other thing that you should do, as well as hip extension and also opening up around the hips, because often they're tight at the front, and part of that tightness is coming from the hip flexors, which is basically what allows you to do this. So you're sitting, they shorten and they cause a lot of tightness and prevent this hip extension part because they want to stay in flexion. And also a weak core can cause this issue as well. So I mean, even by doing the exercise you will improve it, but if you can't do the exercise properly because of the sleepy glute situation, then eventually it's just going to reinforce a bad pattern, and your lower back will take a lot of the strain from this exercise. And many people do complain early on of finding the lower back strain, and it's fatigue of those muscles basically. It's generally not, unless you're going up really heavy too soon, it's generally not going to do your back any long-term problems, but over time it will, especially if you fool yourself into thinking that you're doing hip extension and you're not, and then you go up the weights and you're thinking that you're doing proper form, and then you go on to snatches and things, and you're still not getting that proper extension of the hips, and you're not engaging your glutes at all. So important. My clients are so sick of me saying glutes, glutes, because in every exercise this is so important. As I said about the hip hinge and the squat, think about your plank. What do people do? When most beginners start off, they have their butts in the air. That's because they cannot properly extend the hips because they're weak here, tight here, and weak here. So this makes it easier. So you're doing even when you're doing your push-up, make sure that everything's engaged. But basically, when it comes to the swing, it's that hip extension from here to here. The power from that is what propels the bell up in the air. Without that, what have you got? You've got disconnect, you won't learn proper rhythm, and you'll end up pulling the kettlebell up with your arms because you won't have enough momentum from the hips carrying forward into the arms. And that's whenever you're running into upper back injuries and shoulder injuries. And you wonder why you can't swing. So important to learn how to properly extend the hips, and the glute bridge is probably one of the better exercises in order to learn how that feels. You can load that exercise up. I'll show you another post to do with the hip thrust on the blog post as well, but I need to move on because I'm going off on my tangents. So point 2, recap, is obtaining proper hip extension. So in order to view that, I'll show you this again. Okay, so notice how the glutes are forcing the hips forward into the hip snap, which is full hip extension, and propelling the kettlebell forward. The arms are simply guiding the kettlebell. Now, in absence of full hip extension, you will notice how the lower back is compensating, and so are the arms. When I did this, I felt it entirely in the lower back. You see the difference, and it's just that small amount of extension that you need to follow through with the power of the hips and propel the kettlebell forward. Okay, so this concludes part 2 of the Kettlebell Swing correction series, and there's 3 parts in total. If you want to watch the whole series together, along with a written breakdown and some hip mobility and glute activation drills, then follow the link in the description box below, and that'll take you directly to the blog post. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.